All right, y'all. So this is a little bit different than normal. This isn't an 11D second 11D or anything like that. As it turns out, I've had a little time on my hands, and I wanted to make a new plugin. I kind of got inspired by some conversations I was having on Twitter after my Paginations video, 11D on 11D video, which you can see up there somewhere, about two-layer pagination inside of 11D, meaning I maybe create a dynamic set of categories, which I have on my site. So if you go to like brianlrobinson.com, is it /blog/11D? Oh, nope, not that one. Let's do the shortcut. I've got brob.dev. Brob.dev/11D. Oh, blog category 11D. So these are dynamically generated. It's a collection that loops through all of my posts, gets all of the categories for my posts, and then creates this. But the downside, right, is that there's no way to do pagination on this set of posts. And I can dig into a little bit why that is. But as I was kind of trying to help Ray on Twitter about this, I realized that there were a few different places you could kind of find the information on how to do it, but they definitely weren't beginner friendly, and they were allowed JavaScript to accomplish this. The great thing about 11D is that all this was taking place in the 11D config file, in the .11d.js file, and that can become a plugin. That's basically what an 11D plugin is. It's this idea of a configurable, transportable 11D config that can kind of be added on something. So I wanted to dig into that, and I wanted to create a plugin that would work for it. And this is super, super, super alpha. Definitely not ready for production, but this is the 11D plugin dynamic categories. And it's got a few different things I want to show off today. We'll talk a little bit about the code that's generating it, for good or ill on that, and just have this be kind of an informal video to kind of talk about what this is and kind of showcase the value of it, because it's not easy to explain in text. I mean, I've got a whole bunch of text here trying to explain the value of it, but unless you see it and understand the problem set, it might not feel that valuable. So what we're going to do is we're going to take an example. We have a very simple 11D site here. Has a very minimal config. I'm just doing assets because I've got some styles for pagination. Right now it has a very simple index with a base, and it's basically this, right? We have 7 blog posts in it, I think, and they each have a set of categories. There's a title, the date for it, so I could order things because I have been tossing these around. And then an array of categories: dev, JavaScript, HTML. This one is like completely off technology, travel and photography. And then dev, JavaScript 11D, dev, Astro. So like kind of a typical setup of how you might kind of go through this. And so again, the way I would have done this before is in my 11D config, I would have set up a dynamic collection out of this. And I don't want to have to make somebody go through that. So we now have a plugin for it. And the way you're going to install it, let me pull this up real fast. Oh, why are there 3 down here? There we go. We'll do an npm install 11D plugin dynamic categories. It's on npm. It's good to go. You can go ahead and install it. I already have it installed on this one, so we're not going to do that right now. And then we're going to initialize the plugin the way we do in our 11D config. So first we need to require it in at the top. So we'll say const, what do I want to call this? Dynamic categories, and that's going to equal a require statement of the thing we just installed, right? 11D plugin dynamic categories. And then we can instantiate this. We can actually add it to 11D, and you can actually add it as many times as you want and do different collections and categories and stuff like that, which I think is a cool use case. Not one I've tested too strongly, but we're going to go ahead and add it. Thank you, GitHub Copilot. And the way we're going to do that is with the add plugin method on the 11D config. And we need to add a few things to tell it what to do. First, we need to tell it what is our category variable. So that's going to be the string that we use, the key that we use in our front matter, this categories string here. So we definitely want that. It's just going to be a string, categories. And then we need to tell it what collection to look in for it. So we have an items collection. All this is in the documentation on GitHub. And it is our posts string, which you can see here in our post.json. We're adding tags to each of posts. And then because we're dynamically generating this and because you can't create a new collection when there's already a collection, we also have an optional categories collection, which defaults to the category variable. But if we wanted to rename this, we could do that here. I'm not going to do that for this example. And then potentially we might want to have, oh, thank you, GitHub Copilot. I should have turned you off before beginning. Let's turn you off now. Off globally. All right. And then finally, we'll get into this in a little bit, but there's this idea of per page count, and that's going to be the number of things in our 2-level pagination, the number of items that we'll display. We'll start with 2 so we can see the pagination in action in a little bit here. So we've got that, and then I need to close my parentheses there. So this is one configuration, and after we save that in, we actually get notified that dynamic categories created the collection categories, and it has 7 items because we have 7 categories in our new collection. And the way we're going to use that is we're going to do some pagination work. This doesn't necessarily work out of the box. We have to do a little bit of work here, but let's start with the index page. Let's go ahead and loop through all of our categories. So we'll have an unordered list, and then let's see if this works. For a category, that's not what I want at all. And you should be off, Copilot. Why are you still on? There we go. This is going to be category in collections dot category or dot categories. And then we will end that for loop and then inside that we'll create a new list item. We're going to have an anchor to each of these. The href is going to be the category dot slug. It doesn't have to be that. In fact, it's probably going to end up being /posts /category dot slug. And then we'll take this and we'll have it display the category dot title, which could theoretically be different from the slug. In my case, they're very simple categories, so the slug is what that is. So we'll save that in, hopefully not error out anything here. Nope. And now on our home page, we have a list of categories that then go to, you can't probably see it down at the bottom. Oop, there's a quotation mark in that. Let's see. Yep. Got to have the beginning quote here. There we go. Save that in. All right. So now we go to /posts. Oops, didn't clear out my site directory here. Let's delete that. All right. Now we have, there's no posts/dev, which is where we want our category to live. So we need to set up pagination around that. And we'll do that by creating a new file in our source. We'll call it category dot, I think I'm going to do HTML here. And that'll be okay. We can use Liquid for it. Actually, we want this to be nunjux for now, for my copying and pasting ease. But any of the templating languages should be fine on this. We're going to set up some front matter, and we're going to set up some variables down below as well. Let's go ahead and set up an H1 that is going to be a title. And that'll be good for now. And then in our front matter, we need to set our layout, which is going to be base.html. It can be whatever you need it to be. And then we're going to set up a permalink for this. And the permalink is how it's going to create all the URLs. And in this example, we're going to do /posts /category.slug. And then it needs to be also /index.html. It's going to create the HTML file. And then we need to tell this to be a pagination setup. So we're going to take the pagination object and do a little bit of work on that. First, we need to tell it what data to use. We now have a collection that we can use on this, which is going to be collections.categories. It's that collection that's being dynamically generated right now. We're going to give it a size. Each of these is going to be 1. We want 1 category per page. We're going to go ahead and alias it for our ease to just the word category. That's going to be each individual category is going to have that. And then we're going to also maybe do a little bit of 11D computed to get that title to be a little bit nicer. So we could say blog entries with, and let's just say category.title category. I don't know, something like that. Save that in, and now you can see down in what we're generating, we're actually creating those posts, post dev index, post JavaScript index, all the categories we have from this file. And then we refresh over here, and we don't have anything. It's not pulling in that title quite yet because I didn't actually call it title up here. There we go. There it is, blog entries with dev category. So now we can take this and we can also loop through the posts that are being generated by the plugin. So again, for post in category.posts, and then end our for. We'll just, for now, since we don't really need to link to it right now, we'll just say post dot, I think we need data.title, but let's just try title. Yeah, post.data.title. And there they are. Probably should have made this a list, right? List would have been better here. List item, and that list item. And then just for semantics and for importance of accessibility, let's put this as an actual UL. And now we have a list of the blog posts in dev. And there are only 6 blog posts in dev because this one is on 6 of 7 of our blog posts. You can see it actually skips blog post number 2 here. But if we were to come back here to our homepage, go to JavaScript, there are only 2 on this one, 11D, 3rd and 4th is here. So again, we've also got travel, right? Travel only has that second one. So we now have the ability to showcase posts by category. But let's say we desperately want to only have 2 blog posts for every page for whatever reason we're needing to do that. I wouldn't be able to do this with the default categories collection here. I wouldn't be able to do this with just a single level of pagination. So what the plugin also gives you is the ability to have a second collection generated called the category name by page. So whatever you called your category string, there's now a by page version as well. So if we called these tags or if we called these something else, it would be the same kind of syntax here. But we're going to change our collection to by page at the end. So categories by page. And then we've got a few different helpers. So let's see what this does real fast. Yeah, it's going to break. And that's fine. So we look here and it's trying to create this over and over again because we're getting the same slug, but now we need individual pages for each of these. So there's a helper piece of data on each of this, which is called the permalink scheme. And this is going to generate a whole bunch of different things in our data. Let's see, I think we're going to need to delete our site directory for now and rerun 11D. There we go. So now if we scroll up, you can see we're actually creating /posts/dev/index/dev/2 dev3. These are the pages for our pagination at this point. So when we reload here, we don't actually have any of what we need. We also need to delete the /index.html. We were going a little bit further. My scheme includes that to try and make it as easy as possible to get there. Of course, I got myself confused on that. So we can delete site. We can rerun everything. And now we will have dev and also /dev/2, and they're paginated by 2. Because that's what we set up in our configuration. Now, we also need some pagination, and understanding the scheme of how to do this broke my brain a little bit. There's a few different GitHub issues. Zach Leatherman, Creator of 11D, chimed in on one. But basically what's happening here is that along the way, we're creating each of these, and then you have to do all these if and fors and if nots and all sorts of good stuff. So one of the things I wanted to make sure is we had a little bit of extra help there as well. So in case you don't want to build that yourself, and this is still, again, very alpha, there's now a template tag in here as well called the pagination tag, and it's going to accept the category page, basically the page that we're on, as the first value here. So I'm going to pass in category, which is, again, is our alias, save that in, and it's going to automatically create my pagination for me. There's some CSS happening, not in the plugin for this. But you can see we're on page 2. It showcases page 2 as the current one, has a previous and next. We have 1, we have 3. We can page through them. Again, we have 6 posts divided by 3, gets us 2 per page, or vice versa. If I wanted to go in and change that, I could also do that. Let's make it 5 per page. We do 5, and now we've got 5 posts. And we only have 2 pages, and we go and it's automatically split up. Everything that you need is right there. The markup is still pretty early on. It's generating, what's it generating? Let's take a look. It's generating a nav item. I think I need to put a UL in here to make this better semantically and for accessibility. But it's basically creating the next and the previous. Right now, the next doesn't have an anchor because there is no next page. The previous on this page does not have an anchor at that point. And then these also either do contain an anchor inside of it or don't. And I'm doing just some basic HTML stuff like dot/to or dot, going up and down to kind of do this in a dynamic fashion, depending on what you do for a lot of this in production. So there's I don't know, I feel like there's a couple pieces that are duct taped together in here, but for my money, like this is the configuration that you need for it. And then in your categorization, this is a lot less work and a lot less markup, a lot less templating needed to go into doing a lot of this. The examples I've seen were probably like 50 or so lines of category page just to get the pagination, just to get the URLs properly through this. So I think it saves a lot of effort. I think if nothing else, this permalinking thing is a nice thing, as well as not having to do the creation of the data along the way. I think the pagination is a nice little cherry on top if you don't want to write that yourself. And again, just because I've written these doesn't mean you can't just use the data. You can go in and you can use the data and create your permalink scheme however you'd like, create pagination however you'd like from the data. The actual data that comes out, maybe let's log that real fast. So each category, let's log that in here, has a bunch of stuff actually. So here's the Astro one. So it has a slug. The slug is Astro. The title is Astro. Again, this would be a capital A if I had actually put that in that way. It tells me the number of pages, and then it actually creates after those posts. Here's the permalink scheme for this individual page, and then on this page we have current page is 1, the next page is false, and the previous page is false because there's only one. If we were to go up and let's find probably the first one, I think it's going to be the longest one. Let's go all the way up. Here we go. All right. So dev has 2 pages total. Here are all the posts in an array for that. And those posts are the 11D collection items. So you've got everything that you'd have in your normal 11D item there. And then we have the current page we're on is 1. The next page is 2. Previous is false. Here's page 2 of that. So we also have a pages object as well, has the current is 2, next is false, and previous is 1. And if we go back in and we reconfigure our 11d.js to again have a lot of pages, let's get back down here. Here's dev again. We have 3 pages total this time. We have current 1, 2, false. We have 2, 3, 1, and we have 3 false 2. So again, generating the data, you need to also do this if you'd like to on the fly, but the pagination template is also using that as well. Speaking of which, I think I've got this pulled up behind us. We can talk through a little bit of what this is actually doing. So it is an 11D plugin, has those options available with some defaults set up. But yeah, we're doing a few things. Let's collapse some of this down real fast. So we are setting 2 new collections. One is the category collection, which is either the category variable that you're setting up or options.category collection. So if you need to rename it, you can. And then there's also this collection being generated, which is the category collection by page. And those are both generating slightly different arrays. So the category collection one is just generating title, slug, and an array of filtered items. This is also where I'm console logging that lovely little, where to go, dynamic categories here. You can see on my demo, I'm actually generating 2 different versions as well. And then we'll collapse that. So that's all that one's doing. Down here in the by page, this is where a lot of the big effort is happening. Shout out to a lot of different community members for helping me out on this. I'll post some information in the description. But we're taking that pagination size, which is that per page count. We're going to create an array of pages. And then we're also going to get all the category keys. So that's the same thing that I was talking about before, where we loop through all of the blog posts and get the categories that are listed in there and make them a deduped array. And then we're going to loop through that. And then we're going to grab the posts and filter by that. So we're going to filter to make sure that each post that we're bringing in has that category. We're going to reverse them because for the most part, that's what we're doing. That's how most people are going to want that. Probably need to put an option in here to order by something. And then we're going to create paged items. The paged items is going to use underscore to do the chunking mechanism. It's going to take all the tag items and it's going to do that by the pagination size, which is that per page item there. We're going to set the total pages to equal the length of the filtered posts by the per page count. And then we're going to loop through it and create some new objects to go inside of our array. The object will have a slug and a title. It's also going to have the total pages because we need that on each one because we're not actually having one object that has an array of all this. It's just one big flat array. So we always need to know what the next page and previous page are going to be. We're going to have all of the paged items broken up by this current page number. Because again, we're making a page per thing here. The permalink scheme, again, is going to use that same page number. And then we have to do some magic around if the current number is greater than 1, then we're going to do no number, right? We're only going to do a number page if it is greater than 1. Otherwise, we want it to be just at that root category level. And then the pages are going to take the current number. The next is going to be total pages or current page plus 1, or if the current page does not equal total pages. So again, not having a next if there is no next, then it's going to be the current page plus 1. And then the previous is the same, except for if it's the first one, don't exist or be false, and then current number minus 1. So there's a lot happening there. It was intense, kind of broke my brain a little bit and kind of thinking it through. Lots of different community members have configuration set up for this. So you can go and you can copy and paste this sort of thing and bring it into yours. And it doesn't have to have quite as much finesse around it as a plugin would need to have. So you can just get this on your own, but still like, 50 lines of code to get all this up and running. And then we got the short code, which is taking the pages from what we pass into it, a specific page. It's getting the current, next, and previous off of it, setting up the numbers, which we're basically just setting up an array of numbers for the length, basically, of our total pages, and then creating all that markup down here below. I'm not going to explain it because honestly, going through it, this also broke my brain in a lot of ways. I think it is stable, but you can read through it in the GitHub repository. It's all readable-ish. But yeah, this is generating the markup. Again, I need to do a little extra work around some accessibility and some semantics around it. But it's getting there. And I think it's a really interesting use case. And just to kind of show off, we do have this kind of articles by category. You can see I'm creating 2 categories or 2 collections down here. And if we take a look at it, the way we're doing that is like serverless, like the 11D serverless plugin, where we're actually just adding the plugin twice. And again, you can do this to change any of these values. So you could create collections if you wanted to have bigger collection pages for some reason. You could do that here as well. But yeah, here I'm setting categories and posts. And down here, I'm creating something called article categories because I have a collection called articles. And the categories, I could actually call this categories if I wanted to and keep that syntax the same. And then I would just simply come down here and I'd say the category collection would be something like article categories because you can't have the same name for multiple collections. And so if I kept this to be categories, I'd need to do that. Just some things I ran into as I was working through it. So I think this is a really interesting plugin. I think it solves a very real issue with the way that 11D does pagination. And it's usable right now. I'd love some feedback. I'd love some help in making this as good a developer experience as possible. It definitely needs some better markup for the pagination, as well as like maybe we create multiple pagination tags. And we could have pagination just be next and previous versus, next, previous, and the numbers. Maybe there's a way to do like the ... for long sets of pagination. I think there's a lot of opportunity to add some additional good functionality in here. But the primary functionality, right, is creating this kind of setup where you've got pagination within a dynamically generated category. So I hope you kind of give it a shot. I hope you take a look at it and give me some feedback because it's early on, and I think it could be really nice for a lot of people. So come help me out with it. Issues, pull requests, comments on Twitter, whatever it is, comments down below. Let me know what this could be better. and let's work towards getting it to the better place. So until next time, maybe we'll do an 11D second 11D next week. I wanted to give this as a kind of an impromptu quick look at things. Let me know what you think. See you later.